guys, JK War Games. I'm back. So it's been a while. Sorry I haven't been uploading any videos, but I've been working hard on my projects for Compass Games and Tiny Battle Publishing. So I haven't really been playing any games, but I've got this today, Storm Above the Reich from GMT Games. I have to say a massive thanks to GMT Games for sending this to the channel. We're going to do a review, we're going to see what you get, have a look at how it plays and my thoughts. So without further ado, let's get into it. So there is a lot of content packed into this game. We get 2 game boards, but each board is double-sided and the second board is larger than this first board. We get our player aids, we get a new vector map, which this is new to the game. We get a rule book and an advanced rule book, because the game has a basic game and it has an advanced rules section. We get stickers that are stuck onto the blocks, so instead of counters, our fighters are actually blocks. So you put them on these nice wooden blocks, and one side for evasive, one side for determined. We get a situation manual, which you're going to use during the game for setup. We get these nice pursuit maps for the advanced game, really nice. And we get a bunch of counters, we get playing cards, which you're going to use when you attack. And then we also get the display over here, which I can't quite fit in. It's an escort display, and it also has the mission track and damage for aircraft. So you're getting a lot in this box. Now the first thing I'll say, if you've played Skies Above the Reich, then you're going to be right at home with this game. It's not identical, but it plays pretty much exactly the same, apart from a few new rules. But if you're just playing this as a standalone, you haven't played Skies Above the Reich, then it's no problem, you can just jump straight into it. So what we'll do is we'll have a look at a little gameplay of the basic game, then I'll explain a few of the advanced features new to this game, and then I'll sum it up. Okay, the main aim of the game is to destroy American bombers. We are playing as FW-190s, the Germans, and our mission is to knock out as many bombers as we can. And we're going to gain victory points, experience points, and all sorts. So, the way the map is set up is we have our bombers, and we have these numbers and spaces around the bombers. Now the numbers are a lethal number, and these are applied when you're attacking, which I'll explain in a bit. Also, we have each section, we have this high, level and low, and we have 2 approach boxes or 3 approach boxes. So these are where your aircraft are going to move about before they attack. We also have return boxes, so after they've made an attack, they're going to come back to a return box. So basically, let's say we've set up the game and we're going to do a little turn. So we're just going to use 2 aircraft for this example. Now, when the game starts, we have to come in low. So we're going to come in low here. If we had two other aircraft, they would be low there, or they could be low high. They always come in low to start with. And we have our turn track here. So the first part of the turn sequence is to move. Well, these guys have already moved. They've come onto the board, so they don't do anything else with the turn. We then go to returns, but we have no aircraft that returned. We go to escorts. We're not going to go through escorts at the moment. Recovery is if we had any damage. Blast of flak isn't applied in these early missions. Cohesion is if any aircraft have a token on them. We have to see if their cohesion falls, and then we attack. Well, none of that applies, so we'd go to turn 2. So now these guys can move. Now I could choose to move into the low approach box here, and this means that these 2 guys are going to attack this turn. Or I could move them up to level, and it costs 0 points to do that. Or I could spend 1 tactical point and move from low to high, because that could give us an advantage. But we can't then go into high and attack straight away. You'd have to wait another turn. So for this example, we're going into that approach box there. So let's say we've gone through, we've done all the other steps, we're going to attack. So we're going to attack this bomber here. And I've got 2 aircraft and they're coming in from low. I move them into the space and they're going to attack this bomber. Now, if they came in level or high, you'd use these blocks. So if they were level, they'd just have 1 block. If they came in from high, they'd have 2 blocks. Pretty simple. But we came in low, so we don't have any blocks. So the first thing we have to do before we attack is determine where we're going to. So we can either dive, climb roll, or dive roll. So for this example, we're going to climb roll. So we get one of these nice little maneuver tokens, and both of them are going to do it. So basically, they've come from low. After their attacks, they're going to climb to the right, like that. They're going to climb to the right, high, so they'll end up in the high return box. So once we've done that, and you have to do that for all aircraft. Now, because we have 2 aircraft in the same box, we have to check for a collision. And how we do that is we draw a token, one of these tokens, and this says proximity 2. Now what that means is we roll a dice. If it's under 2, then there would be a collision. We'll roll a dice. It's a 3, we're fine. There are other results, but that's just a basic one to show you. So there's no collision, we can go ahead with the attack. So we're going to draw an attack card from the flank. Now for flanks, high and low, use an oblique card, whether it's from this lower or higher flank. So we draw a card for each fighter. Now what we have to determine is the lethal level. So we know it's a 2 here. Now if these bombers had fallen out of formation, there's minuses that can bring this down to a 1 or a 0. Or it can be, it can go up as well. But for us, it's a 2. So we're going to take our first guy here. He's attacking. So we've attacked from the low box. So we flip the card and we look at the low section here. Now we are determined. If we were evasive, we would flip the counter. But we have decided to go determined. Both our fighters are determined. So we go low and we look at 2 because the lethal level is 2. We have that icon. That means our fighter takes a hit and he moves 1 space. So we would draw a damage counter and it's 5, fuselage. Now if we came out of the sun or we had certain skills, we could try and ignore this, but for this example, we're not. We've taken that hit. And he moves 1 space as well. Now because he's climbing, rolling, he's going to move to that space there. The next part is to do continuing fire. So this represents the bombers firing as our aircraft roll over them. So we flip the card, he's determined, and the new space he's in is a 2 as well. So we look at the 2, we take a hit, but it says here, if climbing or climb rolling, break away to tail position, and it adds a +1. So now, instead of us returning to the high box on the tail, we have to return to the low part, and we take another hit. So our aircraft takes another damage token. So it's a disaster. He hasn't got any hits on the bomber and he's in trouble. So next, we draw an attack card for this guy. Same thing, lethal level 2, low. Look at low, and again, he takes a hit. But for this example, let's say he got a hit on the bomber. Now, if you get one of these icons, crosshair icons, that means it's a hit on the bomber. And what you do is you draw one of these damage counters and you look at this side first. There's 2 sides to each counter, but this side has an effect on it. If we roll a 10, we will destroy the bomber. So we'll roll a dice and we roll a 2. We don't destroy the bomber, but we flip the token and there's 1 point of damage put on that bomber. So there's 1 point of damage. Now you need 10 points of damage to destroy a bomber. And if you destroy a bomber, you will earn victory points, which is what you really are trying to do in the game. Then we have to do continuing fire for him. And we look, lethal level 2, he's going to take a hit. So he would take a hit. We're not diving, so none of this at the bottom applies to us. These guys then return. He returns to the tail position because of the continuing fire card he had. This guy goes back to the return box there. That concludes the attack phase. Now, there are these tokens, counters even. Now you can earn these. Swarm is if you have an element. Now an element is the whole board for this part. In the bigger boards, there's more than one element. If the element is attacked by 4 fighters from one approach box, you would earn this. This allows you to transfer 2 hits onto any bomber. Rot lets us ignore a hit if we have a space with 2 fighters. So we did actually have 2 fighters, and this lets us cancel 1 hit. So the hit we took on this guy up here, we can cancel and he's fine. It's just this guy here with 2 hits on him. And also you get advantage position, which lets you cancel a hit as well. So that attack phase is the main part that you're going to be doing. You're going to be attacking and trying to put damage on the bombers. Where it comes in is that you have decisions to make. So if I put 2 aircraft there, I could cause a lot of damage on a bomber, but I could also collide. There could be a collision. So there's decisions to make, which brings a nice sort of decision-making element to the game. So let's say it's another turn. We do moves. Now, anyone with the damage on them, this guy here, he can't move. This guy can only move in the return phase. So once we get to the return phase, this guy can move into a box. Then we get the recovery phase. Now, the recovery phase is to see what happens to our bomber. So we're going to roll for each marker. Now, if I roll a 5 or above, he is fine. If I roll less than that, he is not fine. So for this guy, I rolled a 5, we ignore that hit, and he's fine. The next one is a 7. I roll the dice, I rolled a 7 and he's fine. Let's say we didn't roll that and we rolled a 4. This means that our fighter is out of action and he has to be put in the corresponding box, and on here it says elevator. So if we come over to this track here, our fighter goes into the elevator box there. Now at the end of a mission, you're going to roll to see if he lands or crashes and whether he bails out. So let's say it's the end of the mission. He is an FW190, so we use this column here. I roll a dice, we've scored an 8. On a 7 to 10, he lands. So he's absolutely fine, and we would score 1 experience point for landing. If he didn't land, we would then have to see if he bails out. Now on a 1 to 3, it says no, so he'd be killed. On a 4 to 5, he'd be wounded, and a 6 to 10, he bails out and is fine. Now if you're wounded, you go to the box up the top where that other one is, and you stay there, and at the beginning of each mission you roll a dice, and on a 9 or 10 you come back from being wounded. So it's kind of cool. Now what you'll find in this game is that you are going to take a lot of damage, you're going to lose a lot of fighters. It's a pretty simple game to learn, but it's a very hard game to master, which I think makes this an absolutely awesome game. Now, some points. The basic game is very easy to learn. You can be playing it within half an hour. You can use the player aid and then just refer to the rule book when you need to. But when you start adding in advanced rules, it can get a little bit more tricky, but it's still quite simple. It's just going through the steps. So what we'll do now is look at the pursuit map, and then we'll do the vector map, and then I'll sum up my thoughts. Okay, so I think this is one of the coolest things in the game, the pursuit map. Now, if a bomber falls out of position in the basic game, it receives a fallen counter. Now, any damage markers on that bomber that falls out of position, we put onto the turn track. This is only for the advanced game. So let's say we had these three, we would put them on the turn track of the turn that we're on. So let's say we're on turn 4, we'd put these damage markers on the turn 4 space. Now, in the following turns, we can choose in the movement phase to pursue that bomber that's fallen out of position with any of our fighters. Now, we're just going to use one fighter for this. So let's say it's a couple of turns later and we place this guy on turn 6. We then have to roll a dice to see if we intercept the bomber or not. So if we were in space 6 and the fallen bomber is in space 4, we have to roll a 2 or less to be able to get it. So basically, let's say we have tracked it down and we've got a few damage markers. So we've already got on here a wing damage marker, and we've got another wing damage marker. Now, before any attacks happen, any damage box you have to roll for. So on here, it says, you can see it says wing. Damage markers, we've got 2. So we roll a dice, and on a 5 to 10, the aircraft catches fire and we've destroyed it. So we roll a dice, and it's a 5. Luckily, we would have destroyed that bomber. It can be as quick as that. So that bomber's gone, we'd score victory points. Happy days. But let's say we hadn't. Let's say we didn't roll that and he's just got 1 damage marker. We then bring in our aircraft and we can choose where we want to attack from, but each space uses tactical points, unlike the basic game. So it's the same thing, you're attacking from the same positions, you're going to be using attacking cards, but you have to pay the points. So we've got 3 tactical points, so you're not necessarily going to be able to attack the bomber for that long. So we're going to go from high oblique there, and it costs 2 tactical points. So we move that down 2, and then we can attack him. So we go through the same thing. We pull a card, and we can see the threat level is 0. So we're high, 0. We get hit on the bomber, we take a hit, and we move 1 space, which doesn't apply in the advanced game. So we would take this, and we've got a wing. So now we've got another wing marker on that box. We're going to roll a dice, and we roll a 6, and remember 5 to 10 destroys it. So very lucky, we would have destroyed it. But this game can go on and on if you're only getting little bits of damage. So you can see there's engine damage, cockpit damage, gunner, fuselage, and also you have to roll for the sun. But I'm not going to go into that. This isn't a how to play. This is just showing you how things work. And this happens at the end of the game for any bombers that have fallen out of position. It's quite easy to add, and I think it adds a nice little extra part of the game at the end of a mission. So let's look at the new vector map, which isn't in Skies Above the Reich, it's just in Storm Above the Reich. Okay, so this is the vector map. I can't quite get it all in because it's quite big. So basically, this is in the advanced game, and imagine this as your aircraft flying towards the bombers. They haven't met them yet, and they might run into trouble before they get there. So let's say we've got a group of 4 fighters, okay, 2 groups like that. We put them in the vector zone. Now, the good thing with this is we get an additional 2 OP. Now, OP is what you use to buy aircraft and attachments. We get +2 tactical points, which can come in handy, especially with the pursuing bombers, and we get a +2 flight limit, so the more turns to the game. Now they start here, And what they do is you first move. So you can see it says 0 tactical points to move into that middle box. So we move our guys into there. If we wanted to move into high, because it can give us a bit of an advantage, it's going to cost 1 tactical point. But we've decided to go into this zone. Now all we do, the next part is a situation check. Like in other games, we've moved into the box, we then do a situation check. We roll 2d10 and add them together. I've rolled 4. We look at this. We are at the far and close zones at the moment. We go across because we're playing Mediterranean 1943. Now we've rolled a 4. On a 2 to 4, you can see there's 2 Ks there. That means we get 2 escorts. So 2 escorts would come in and do battle with our guys. Now that's extremely bad roll from me. That's very unlucky. And most of the time when escorts attack, your fighters are going to break off. So there's a chance that if you haven't got many fighters, you're not even going to get to the main mission. So this is quite risky. It does make the game more difficult. There's other things that can happen, like a radio malfunction. So one of these would have to go back to base. There's fallen bombers that can fall out of position, and then you can choose to pursue them. And basically you work your way all the way up to the final zone. And let's say these guys manage to get all the way up there. Then you can choose to come in high, level or low onto the mission map. Now remember, in the basic game, you have to start low. But here, if you pay the tactical points, you guys could come in high. And this gives you an advantage straight away into the game. Now my advice is that only use the vector map if you've got a lot of fighters or you've got a lot of supports. You can spend OP to have different supports in the game. And this is what you want, because if you're losing supports, it's not too bad. You don't want to be losing your main fighters. So this is a very, very brief look at how this works. I really like this, but I have sort of had situations where I've literally had 2 fighters left, and then you're trying to play a whole mission with 2 fighters. This is a cruel game. It will knock your fighters, it will kill your pilots, and it can get frustrating, but it's very, very addictive. If you've not played if you've not played Skies Above the Reich, I recommend getting that and playing it, because I feel the early missions are slightly easier in that. This is like a continuation, so but you can play this as standalone, and I think it's a fantastic, fantastic game. I love aircraft game like this. If I had to give it a score out of 10, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I think as a player, you're given choices, so you don't have to use this map. You don't have to do the pursuit map. You can literally play the basic game, and it's a lot easier, and you're going to be getting loads of victory points and winning, which is great. But for some of us, we want that more hardcore experience, and that's the choice it gives you. Now the other thing is escorts. If you get jumped on by escorts in this game, you can guarantee that your fighters are either going to break off or be destroyed. So yeah, escorts are the most annoying thing in the game. But overall, I think this is a great game. I recommend it to anyone, especially if you've played the Skies Above the Reich. It's definitely worth getting. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe on my videos. And hopefully I'll have more content updated more regularly. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll see you soon.